All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Legacy Evolution Leader Class Nova Prime. Yeah, this is another Amazon exclusive set. We took a look at Cascade and Javelin not too long ago. This is the second of those sets. And yeah, no, this is a really nice figure. And honestly, I really have always wanted a nice, well done, proper version of Nova Prime because I never was really overly attached to the character in the comics, just in terms of like how it's actually used in the story, just because I didn't read most of the stories that use Nova Prime. But I've always really loved the Nova Prime design. I just think it's a super cool aesthetic here. And yeah, this was a good mold to choose to do this figure. Now we've obviously gotten a few different versions of variations of this mold. The one that is closest to is the Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime from Siege. Obviously this like there's been retools of this mold to make Siege and also Kingdom Ultra Magnus, and then I guess also the Shattered Glass one. But in terms of like how changed this is, the one that it's closest to by far, I'd say, is the Galaxy Optimus Prime, which unfortunately is not a figure that I have, so I can't really show off all the like specific changes. There's a few things I know, like obviously the wings are different from the whole like Cybertron Optimus Prime aesthetic, and then obviously the chest and the head and the big combined mode is different. But otherwise, I don't really know like how many of the individual little sculpted details are things that are new versus just carries over from that previous mold. But either way, I feel like this is a good choice for Nova Prime, just because it's always been a character that has like the kind of like big armored up mode. And then obviously with the wings, I feel like using the Galaxy Optimus Prime and just changing the wings is a good call there. And then it also has like a vaguely sort of I know technically in Cybertron Optimus Prime scanned an Earth vehicle, but like it's a pretty ridiculous looking truck to have existed on Earth prior. So like it kind of works as a Cybertronian mode anyway, I feel like. So I feel like this was a good choice of molds to actually do Nova Prime. Now he comes with a few weapons here. I mean, obviously, other than the ones that are kind of attached to the figure already. In terms of storage, for this little gun here, you're just supposed to plug it in upside down and kind of complete the second main cannon there, just because the handle would just kind of bump into the shoulder piece if you didn't plug it in upside down. And for these two guns, what they want you to do is plug them into the side of the wings here, and that looks okay. What I generally end up doing is I just actually plug them in where they store in robot mode, which is like this, because they store just kind of on the legs like this in robot mode. So I kind of just like leaving them there and then having them be, just kind of upside down guns here. But really, you've got a number of different ports. You can do it however you want. That's just personally what I prefer. But yeah, it's a nice vehicle mode. Obviously, it rolls okay. I've noticed that the middle wheels don't really look like they're ever actually contacting the ground, and the way that the new wings are sculpted, it's a very, very low amount of clearance here. Like, I think that these do scrape against the ground a little bit. It's kind of hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure that's happening. So, yeah, not great, but that's okay. It gets away with it. But yeah, obviously there's no sort of like rotation or anything. It's pretty much just like one big long truck. So, who knows how this thing actually goes around corners, but again, fairly accurate to the original, like Galaxy Optimus Prime aesthetic. So whatever. I mean, old conversation at this point, since it's, this mold is from Siege, which is like 4 years ago at this point. But yeah, you can also take the guns here, and they're on hinges, so they can hinge up and down in this mode, which is nice. And then the rest of it is like, yeah, you can like unfold the wings if you wanted to, but they are clipped into the side here. They're part of what actually holds it in place. I don't love that you can kind of just see the combined mode head just hanging out in there. Like, obviously, you can rotate it around, so it's a little bit less conspicuous, but there's not a lot actually like covering it up in there. Like, if you have the guns down, you can't see it from most angles, but it is just kind of there, so whatever. Another thing that I don't love, and honestly this is more of a thing in robot mode, but like how the ankles are like pre-tilt, they have that like sculpt in them, which I think just looks a little bit worse in vehicle mode as well. It causes more like actual problems in robot mode, but just as an aesthetic, I feel like it would be cleaner if these just, sat in line with everything else rather than looking like that. But that's kind of a nitpick. Ultimately, I like the vehicle mode, and I think it does work for Nova Prime, who, like, there's been like, designs for Nova Prime's vehicle mode, but really the robot mode aesthetic is the more important thing. So it's like you can kind of just make it whatever as long as it's like a vaguely alien truck. I feel like it works well enough. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, again, I don't have the Galaxy Optimus Prime, the only version of this mold, which, the armor pieces are all kind of a lot different. The only version I have is Kingdom Ultra Magnus, so that's what they look like together. And again, like I said, like the main figure kind of shares a transformation scheme, but it doesn't actually have that many shared parts. Like I think like the arms are the same and a lot of like the internal structures, but most of the like outside of the truck is different. And then in terms of the armor, really the only thing that is the same is the like leg pieces here, and then they're all the like panels that fold up on the side of it are completely different and also function completely differently. So they are, they are partials of the same mold, but really they're not really all that similar when you get right down to it. And then for another comparison, just for a standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe, just so you can see what he looks like in an average size deluxe. And then here he is with Earthrise Optimus Prime and his trailer, just so you can see how that stacks up. Again, like if you have any version of this mold, you kind of know the size that it is already, but that's what he looks like with them. Now, obviously, this does have the kind of like individual truck mode as well, because like the whole gimmick with this figure is like it's got, a separate kind of like fully transforming figure and then the armor that makes it into its like super mode. So to get to that, it's kind of annoying to honestly like unplug all the armor bits, but you want to take this white panel here and it kind of just clips into this rail in the back here. So you just want to undo that. And then the wings, this can be kind of a pain, but there are these little clips right here that go over the wings, which is a lot easier to plug in than it is to undo. Also, yeah, if you have those stored back there, I guess you do want to rotate them down so the wings can actually hinge out to the side, but it's kind of a pain. It always kind of feels bad, honestly. And then you can just slide the truck out from here. Just this piece right here just kind of slides over these two bits here that connect the legs together. And there's the individual truck mode. And unfortunately, there's not really a whole lot you can do with this. Like, it doesn't have a stand or anything. I find that if you just spread the wings out to the side, it does prop it up a little bit, so at least it sits level. But it's not much to look at on its own. And kind of same with the individual truck mode. Like, it's mostly fine, but, the usual problem with this mold is that the hands are just kind of blatantly hanging out in the back, and it's not a great look, but whatever. But yeah, in terms of comparisons with just this guy, I guess we can just take Prime in his individual mode here and show him off like that. And Sideswipe, and I'm not going to really bother with Ultra Magnus just because, like I said, with this one, it is kind of a pain, especially on him for taking off all of the extra bits, but there it is with the big combined mode, if that's worth anything to you. But yeah, in terms of transformation for the smaller robot, it's pretty simple to kind of like accommodate like all of the gimmicks with the armor just to fit in the right price budget. And it is easier to transform this straight into the combined mode because there are a few extra steps to get into the individual robot mode that you can kind of just like skip over entirely if you're going to combined mode. But for the sake of showing it off, you can just untab the legs here, which you have to do before you bring them down because there's also these two little tabs on the waist piece that plug into the inside of the thighs. So you can't bring this down until you untab those legs. And then just bring it down on the hips there. And then these little heels, you can just flip out like that so you can stand. And then you want to take the arms here, rotate them out, and you don't actually plug them in yet because before you do that, you want to rotate this whole piece around and then take just the front half of the truck here and just untab it and open it up so you can flip out the robot mode head and then close that back up. And then you can tab in the arms because otherwise they lock that piece in place. So you just close it up like that. And then you want to take this entire bumper section and you want to line up this piece, which is part of the waist swivel here, so that the rail lines up with that piece. And then you just slide it up like that until it clicks into place. And then you can slide the body back to pretty much where it was. And then you just straighten out the arms and then rotate the hands. And there we have the individual robot mode for Nova Prime, or I guess is this just like Nova, I guess. I don't know, in his singular robot mode there. And yeah, it looks good. I've always kind of liked the robot mode for this. It's definitely bulkier than like Siege and Earthrise Prime, but it's a pretty good robot mode, all things considered. It's got a nice head sculpt there. Pretty sure it's just using the same Optimus Prime sculpt that was used for this previously, which makes sense. The head is on a ball joint here, so it rotates around like that. Then the shoulders are on swivels and then can hinge out to the side at the shoulder block there. It's got a bicep swivel, 90 degrees of bend at the elbow, wrist rotation, waist rotation. Now, on the previous versions of this mold, there was like two different waist pieces, one for like the individual robot mode and one for the combined mode. And this guy does still have that functionality, but the other side of it is just kind of like an unpainted gray piece. So I'm fairly certain that you're supposed to have this one up for the combined mode, but it also looks better like that in the individual robot mode too. So I usually just leave it in place, but if you want it to look slightly different, you can fold it and have that going on. I think it looks way worse, but that piece still exists. But yeah, just a regular waist swivel there, and then the hips can ratchet forward and back, and they can just rotate out to the side just with friction. It's got a thigh swivel, about 90 degrees of bend at the knee, and yes, the knees, even in the small robot mode, are way too high, so that definitely doesn't help when you actually extend the legs, but whatever. And then he does have ankle tilt there. And then the other thing is like about his waist ratchets, they're really weird feeling. I kind of forgot because like I've had the upgrade kit, the like leg upgrade kit on Ultra Magnus for the longest time, that I forgot that like all the problems with the hips are actually from the original figure, not from that upgrade kit, because you don't replace the hips when you do the like the DNA design upgrade kit that gives them the longer legs. But yeah, they're not terrible, but they're really weird because there's like a weird amount of like give between the ratchets, and like when you bring them forward, they feel like they're kind of like affecting each other too. So it's like, I don't know, it's really weird because like basically if you want them to stand up straight, and especially in the big robot mode, you kind of want to click them forward and then kind of like bring it back just like with a give there, which is a really weird feeling. You can see it's like, I don't know, wherever you have it, like when you move one leg, it wants to move the other leg a little bit with it. And then there's like, I don't know, it's like, it's maneuverable, like you can do it, but I don't know, I'm just not entirely sure what is happening there with the mechanisms. Like it doesn't really cause any huge problems. It just like kind of feels weird when you're posing around the figure. But yeah, decent individual robot mode there in terms of comparisons with just this guy. Here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe and Earthrise Optimus Prime, just for those kind of standard comparisons there, and you can see how that looks going on. Obviously a bit wider than the Earthrise mold, and here he is again with the individual robot mode for Kingdom Ultra Magnus. You can see some shared parts here. Like I think the arms are entirely the same. The head sculpt I assume is the same. It looks more or less the same, and then obviously the whole chest piece is different. And I'm pretty sure the legs originally were the same. Obviously he's got the kind of like upgrade kit legs on him. Waist piece is the same. Mostly just like all the truck bits are different, and then the rest of the actual skeleton is pretty much the same. So that's what they look like together. And here he is with Nemesis Prime, just so you can see the evil white Optimus Prime versus the evil black Optimus Prime. I feel like they look good together. He is like supposed to be some version of Nemesis Prime, like in the comics, which I always kind of consider them separate characters. But he was like the creation of Nova Prime, if I'm not mistaken, was kind of supposed to be like the comic book's answer to like what Nemesis Prime is, but it's so different since like he's all white versus being all black that I just kind of consider them completely like two different characters, but that's what they look like together. But yeah, in terms of his weapons, obviously you can give him any of the things that come with the trailer here. You can give him the individual gun, which I feel like he looks pretty good holding. There is ways to store on the back here. You've got a couple pegs on either side, so you could plug it onto the back there, or you could just plug it straight onto the back like that. It does stick out a lot, but you've got those options. And then obviously you can give him these guns as well that just peg onto the side. And I feel like they look a little bit ridiculous on him, but not too bad. So you've got that going on. And again, if you want to store those, then you can plug those into those side pegs. They do fit, so you could store all three weapons on his individual robot mode if you wanted to. Obviously, they don't really have anywhere in truck mode to go, but they do have places that they can store in the individual robot mode, which I appreciate. But yeah, in terms of the actual, oh, all right, well, we'll start this off anyway. You can also use these if you want that plug onto the arms. This is really more for the sort of like armored up mode, but you know, if you want them to have those as weapons in this mode, you could obviously do that as well. So we'll just take these off, and then we'll kind of get into the rest of the transformation to the combined mode here. So yeah, you can start off by doing that. Just take these pieces off to the side, and then this grill piece just folds forward, and then there's a peg and a tab there. They'll go into a hole in the slot there on the arms, so you can just peg it in like that. And then you want to go kind of like halfway in between, like back into the like truck mode. Like you want to flip the heels in. Then we want to unsnap the arms so that you can you know, take the chest section and open that up again and fold in the robot mode head, and then close that back up just like that. And then you want to bring this section forward just so you can take this piece and slide it back down onto the waist here. So you can see what I'm saying in terms of, like, you know, if you're just going straight from truck mode into the combined mode, there are a few steps that you just kind of skip entirely, and then bring this back in. And that's pretty much all ready to go for the combined mode. And then we can take this piece here. And from the back here, you want to unplug the feet from the rest of this, which I find the easiest way to do because it latches in up here and then also down here on these gray pieces. And I find it really hard to unlatch these pieces because they kind of like hook into it. So I usually find that unfolding it this way is a lot easier because like these give a lot faster than these would, just because you can see these hooks like really go up into those pieces. So you can take the two feet sections here, unpeg them from each other, and then these are, I believe these are new sculpted pieces, because originally the Galaxy upgrade Optimus Prime obviously had the shoulders that made it look like the you know, the truck thing from the original toy. So I'm pretty sure these are new parts. I don't know, like they kind of just like sandwich in here. Like there are some grooves for them to go, but it's kind of a weird connection. I don't know if the original one had a bit more of like an actual like peg and hole connection, but these, like, they can be kind of tricky to get them in there when you're going back to truck mode. Like when you kind of know when you get it, and they, you know, don't really have anywhere to go when they're pegged into each other, but they do feel like just kind of, I don't know, it feels sort of like, you know, how if they did an upgrade kit with shoulders, like how they would just like find some way to sandwich it into the part rather than having like intentional locking pieces. Again, I don't know how different that is from the you know, the original one, because like the shoulder pieces on Ultra Magnus go in an entirely different place. But yeah, once you know where they go, it's not too bad. But we can take the shoulder pieces here, and then they just have they've got a hole and a peg. So then the peg will go into this hole on the shoulder here, and then the smokestacks will go into the hole. You want it so this little peg is facing forward. So you just want to line that up, and then make sure that's pushed into place. You'll know it's entirely in place because the little tab back here will go into this groove. So we can just do that on both sides here. And then for the legs, you just want to put them in here. These little like hook things go into that section, which doesn't really hold it in all that well, but the tab here on the knee also goes into this section, which helps out a lot more. So we just do that on both sides. And you're supposed to take these pieces and fold out these like extra super long heels in the back, but it is just completely unnecessary. Like even with all the stuff on his back, like the regular heels hold him just fine. So I usually just leave these in because I think it looks way better without those in, and the feet are like well wide enough as is. So I don't really know why they decided to put those there, but technically you're supposed to fold those out. I just think it looks really dumb and isn't actually serving any sort of purpose. So whatever, but you know, just so you know, those are there. And then you take this entire section here, and you want to fold up the guns, and then on this piece here, you want to fold them around to the other side, just like that. And we'll just leave them up like that for now. Take the wings, fold them out to the side. Take these pieces and kind of just fold them up for now. So you can take this piece, this armature will unclip from the main section there, which can be kind of a pain. You want to bring that around and then take this white piece and then fold it up like this, so it kind of sits as compressed towards the back as it can, and then you can take these pieces and just fold them into it like that. And you can take the guns and just flip them up onto the back here so they just kind of sit out of the way. And then the chest piece, you just want to rotate that up, rotate out the chest piece, and then rotate around the combined mode head. And then these series of clips right here will just go onto to this bar in the back here. So you just want to work that around like that. get that clipped into place, and then you can bring the chest down, and there's two tabs that will go into two slots on this chest there. And there we, for all intents and purposes, have Nova Prime in his robot mode. Let me just adjust the camera here real quick. But yeah, no, I think he looks great. This is I think a really good use of this mold. I love the new head sculpt. It's very accurate to kind of how Nova Prime looked in the comics, and then obviously the new chest there I think works really well. Now the wings, you know, like I think maybe like I was kind of hoping that we would have some sort of like actually articulated wings with like the different feathers. They are just kind of all one piece. Painted, which is a little bit unfortunate, but at least the sculpt that they have it in, I think, does look good. But you know, obviously, it would have been nice if they could actually fold up like that. But that would have added a lot more parts to the mold, since you know, obviously on the Galaxy Optimus Prime, they were just kind of like one solid part. You know, give or take, but if maybe some company will do some upgrade kit. I don't know that it necessarily needs it, but it would have been nice to have something like that. But yeah, it's fine as is. Now, in terms of articulation, it's mostly similar to how it was in the individual mode. The head is on a ball joint here. The shoulders are, you know, the same joints. They just have the new shoulder pieces on there. So they pretty much aren't really hindered by anything, just because, like, you know, these all move out of the way. Like, it bumps into the backpack a little bit, but not a lot. And then the arms, you know, obviously just have these new pieces on there, but it doesn't really get in the way a whole lot. And then obviously the wrists still move, still has that waist cut. Hips are the same. Same and kind of weird, like wibbly joints. Obviously, you know, now his knees are even higher up his legs, which is never something that I've really liked about this mold, which is why I got the, you know, the like leg upgrade for Ultra Magnus. Yeah, you know, still work the same. Still has, you know, about the same amount of bend at the knees. His new feet do have ankle tilt, which is just, I don't understand why they would sculpt the feet like this, because like in alt mode, I think it looks kind of bad, but also there's just like, it's such a drastic sculpt. So if you actually want his feet like standing on the ground, his legs have to be like way out like that, which I just don't think looks that good. Like really you'd want it in a bit more like this, but then his feet are a little bit tilted down. And I just, you know, I know that they used to do this a lot. Like instead of giving figures ankle tilts, they would actually just like, you know, sculpt the feet with a slight A stance, which was always something that was, you know, appreciated. But it just baffles me with this one because he has an ankle tilt. So like, what's the point of sculpting the feet like that? Like, I sort of get that to an extent, is like, oh, you know, if they were flat footed on the ground, that would mean that they would like scrape up against the ground in vehicle mode, or the wheels would be on the ground in robot mode. But like, I don't know. I feel like he'd stand okay even if the wheels were touching the ground, or like they're, you know, just like extend this out or something. I don't know, but like this was not the solution. And then even if they were going to do this with like the sculpted A stance, it should not have been that wide, because that's just excessive. But I don't know. He doesn't actually look that bad when you have him standing normally. It just bothers me that I can tell that the feet are tilted a little bit in, and there's just really no reason for them to be, because if you want him with a wider stance, he's got a decent ankle tilt. So whatever. That, you know, that's a conversation about this figure that's obviously several years old. This is just, you know, also applies to this version of it. But yeah, and then the wings can tilt in and out like that. And then for the guns here, you know, obviously they've got these joints to work with here. They also have these sliding handles. So if you actually want to, you know, use the guns and kind of do really more of the, you know, Galaxy Optimus Prime thing, you can bring them underneath and kind of like adjust the handle so that he can underslung them like that. And it's a cool look. Again, it's really more of a Cybertron Optimus Prime thing, but you know, because it uses this mold, it still has those guns, and I feel like it is still a feature that works well. I will say, like, you know, took me a little bit to get used to, like, you know, like in terms of like the actual Nova Prime aesthetic, you probably wouldn't really want those over his shoulders. You'd kind of want it to look more like that, you know, a little bit more clean. But, you know, like you could probably take off these pieces, but it would, you know, involve popping a pin or two, and then, you know, you have a lot more of an empty alt mode. So I think it's fine, but those are the one part of the aesthetic that is definitely like feels the least kind of like Nova Prime, if that makes sense. But yeah, so, along like this mold, just as usual, like the armor doesn't really hamper the articulation all that much. It still works pretty well. In terms of his weapons here, obviously we can have him hold any of these. And it looks about the same as it did before, just a little bit more proportional with a bigger robot. In terms of storage, for the two side guns, you can just put them onto this port right here, and they just store pretty cleanly on the side of the leg there. And then obviously, if you want those to like angle forward and actually be, like leg guns, you could do that too. In terms of this, you could put it with just like how it was in vehicle mode and just stick up over the top here, but it adds even more height. But what I generally do is I generally just plug it into the port on his butt there so that it just kind of sits a little bit more cleanly. It does mean that this gun doesn't like technically have a barrel for when you flip it around, but in terms of just like when they're sitting on his back, I think that just like looks a lot better. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for the standard ones, here he is again with Sideswipe and Optimus Prime, just so you can see how he's gained a bit of height there. Here he is again with Kingdom Ultra Magnus, just so you can see. And, again, he's got the leg upgrade, but I've compressed them there, so he's pretty much the height he would have originally been. So you can see what they look like together there. I was kind of thinking when I got this guy that, like, oh, it was announced at the same time that we also got the announcement of the new, Commander class Ultra Magnus. So this guy is getting replaced soon. I was like, oh, perfect. I'll just take the leg upgrades that are on him and put them on him. But unfortunately, at least, with these two figures, his white is a bit more of an off-white. So they matched it to that. I'm sure they'll put out another like upgrade kit for this mold specifically to like actually match it to this figure. But I don't really want to buy that set again because it was already, kind of a splurge the first time. So I was hoping that I could just use this one, but like the white's a bit different. His thighs are supposed to be gray, so it would, make it so his thighs are white. Like it looked okay. I tried it out on him and it looked okay. Proportionally, it does make him look a little bit better. But honestly, I feel like because he doesn't have as many panels folding up onto the legs here or like chunking out the forearms as much as Ultra Magnus does, he looks a lot better just like as is without the like extension to make him a little bit taller. So I don't really mind it in a way that, I thought I might, because like with him, I think he looks way better with the longer legs. But, I think that it kind of works already with Nova Prime. Really, the only thing is that the thighs are really, really short in comparison to the lower legs, but that's nothing new for a lot of different Transformers designs. So I probably won't pick up the upgrade kit for him. But yeah, I was kind of hoping to just be able to use these ones and swap it out that way, but doesn't really work aesthetically. Like it functionally works, but it doesn't look the best. Here he is again with Nemesis Prime in this mode, and that's what they look like together. And then just for a bit of fun, here he is with Big Convoy, just because I feel like their head designs were always very similar with like the two horns out to the side. Want to bring these up a little bit, like pretty similar designs there. I don't know, there was probably some inspiration from Big Convoy when they designed Nova Prime for the comics, so that's what they look like together for whatever that's worth. But yeah, no, I really like this figure. I was never actually that big of a fan of Kingdom Ultra Magnus, so I was kind of like, all right, getting a mold that I'm not crazy about, but at least it's a character I really wanted. But honestly, like, since I've never messed with the Galaxy Optimus Prime mold, like, it's way better than Kingdom Ultra Magnus, I feel like, and probably, just in terms of like the vehicle mode looking like it should for Ultra Magnus's vehicle mode, and all the way the parts attach, I feel like is a lot more sort of intuitive on this version of the mold. The wings kind of making the scaffolding on the outside there is a little bit strange with like all the, different parts there, but having lines that, but it's fine. I think it works well enough. But yeah, no, I think he's pretty good here. This is what I'm saying is like, okay, do we really need those heels? Like, he's fine. Like, sure, if you've got the extra heels there, like, then you really won't be able to knock him over. But like, he stands fine without those, and I just think it kind of looks stupid. So it's nice that they're there, I guess, that they're trying to give it a little extra support, but really I don't think he needs those at all. But yeah, no, this is a really nice color scheme on a figure that I've kind of gotten a bit more of a new appreciation for, honestly. But yeah, pretty much all there is to him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Make sure to check me out on my Instagram account. That's toys.n.art. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Legacy Evolution Leader Class Nova Prime.